The concept today is rising above your circumstance, specifically all the tests, the trials, the storms that we face because of our carnal nature, to rise above the physical aspect, that animal soul. So the ark can represent this place of surrender. But I want to go back and overlap that with how we entered this mess in the first place, where a man wanting to rule over the woman, where this is his carnal nature, allowing it to get the best of him, instead of surrendering that. So the earth was overpowered with people's thoughts continually being without God in them, maybe cheating, sorts of violence, anything that was contrary to God. Only Noah was walking with God and finding grace in God's sight. So we have this godly soul, and amidst all of this, it could be overwhelming to battle with that carnal nature where you're in this world and you're connected with all these thoughts. How do we rule above? How do we rise above? How do we master the storms like Peter to be able to walk on the water? Looking first at the carnal nature of the man, of Adam, where she was desiring him to take control, to rule over her, and she gave him to him herself, where he could rule over it, just like a lamb may to the master. And Cain, if that sin offering was theirs, just say is the picture of a lamb, first of all, but really it's his own self. The lamb is just a picture of our sacrificing our bodies. And the wife is a picture of the carnal nature in this circumstance, because what she's offering would be intercourse, as we're understanding it, that she's surrendering herself, and what he needs to rule over is not to claim her for himself, to take possession, but to rule over the carnal nature that she is presenting and surrendering to him. So it's like this lamb where it's being innocent and following around the master, and the master has to rule over that desire to say, no, I'm going to keep this lamb. And what he has to do is make that a living sacrifice. So our carnal nature, instead of allowing it to get the best of us, it has to go through this period of surrender where the flesh can subside. So until the Spirit of God leaves that, until it's completely dead. So the life that is in them expires, the Spirit leaves them, and then later the Spirit will return, and they are renewed. His Spirit begins to rest, and the water is subsiding, so it goes through a transition. So first, though, we have to go through this sacrifice, which is us surrendering. It's not saying, God, it needs to be this way or that way, like we've made up our mind. It's just a point of surrender to God, where we're saying, however you do it, this is what my flesh is feeling, but I want it to get in line with you. If it is not your will, if the will of my carnal nature is not in line, then I'm asking you to move it to rise above the circumstance. So first we need to enter this ark, which is death to self, is just total surrender for God to take us wherever he will, and to completely rise above the physical so that all flesh can perish. So the carnal nature of man is to feel like I can be God to the people. I want to be better than them. I want to be the one to rise above them. But that is the flesh rising above. And what we're wanting to do is the more godly soul to be able to rise above all of those thoughts that you are having, um, any kind of lust, any kind of longing in itself, nothing is wrong in itself. So to surrender that to God and say, God, this is the circumstance. I have this need, I have this void, and this is what my flesh desires, and you meet all of my needs. But I'm not going to be the one to take control and say it needs to be this way or that way. I'm going to enter this place of surrender and allow you to carry me above my circumstance. However result you want to bring, I will be watching to see where you are going, because it could go this way or that way, and whichever way it goes, that's fine. So with the woman, her issue is that she's desiring a mediator. So the bride, like all of Israel, they were desiring this king to rule over them, or they're desiring Moses to keep him as the mediator, because we want somebody to do it for us. And so what the woman needs to do to overcome her carnal nature is to surrender that desire to be ruled over, instead to go to God directly, to realize that she can do that, that she's not so weak that she has to just be told what to do and things to be done for her. And the next thing is where the woman, she is pulling down life. That is her toil, like in prayer. The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. So what we want to do into our circumstance to validate it is to say that my reasoning for my prayers is that you get the glory, God, and whatever is in the spiritual realm, whoever it is that you are, that you will come into my circumstance. So if you are abundance, I'm calling down abundance into my circumstance, because that's who you are. I'm not going to tell you how you need to do that, but if you are love, all the things that you are, God, that you want me to live an abundant life. That is my desire, and my flesh desires that too, but my flesh does not need to rise above and determine how that needs to be done. Now, when you tell me what to do, like you tell me to build the ark, you tell me to go in the ark, I'll do that. You tell me not to eat from the tree of life, I'll do that. And if you then tell me that now it is time, then that's fine. So what we need to do then with that void, with that desire, is to turn to God in prayer to pull down life into this world, into this barren earth, where God says, be fruitful and multiply. So I'm aligning myself with God's will in the physical to bring into the physical who God is, what, like a multiplication of the word of God, instead of just doing it in my own toil, in my own strength. Now, like this role of like provider, that's fine as long as like we're all surrendering. None of these things are wrong in themselves. But like if God says, like, today I want you to do something a little new, a little different, to live a life that is so surrendered, that we're never saying, okay, now I got it, now I'm going to take charge, now I have the answers, but to always be in this place of death to self as far as our carnal nature, to surrender all of our thoughts, everything that would exalt itself against God, into the ark. It's like a coffin, a place that was dark until the waters began to subside. And then finally a window is opened, and then we're waiting on God to reveal where he's going to have us go when the time is right, to be able to wait. So it's like like Moses had this inclination that he was supposed to deliver God's people, that was in his heart, but instead of doing it in his own timing, he needed to wait those 40 years for his flesh to be in the right place. So 40 days later, that's like a time of fasting, of death to your body, and then allowing, not just being empty now that you've cleared your vessel, but now you're allowing the light in. This window was closed, so it was like a dark place. And now, like a seed in the ground that's ready to sprout, where we're growing to reach upward. And first he sends out this raven, and the dove goes out like maybe 3 times total, because until finally it doesn't come back again. So like our spirit is searching, like, God, where do you want us, until like God reveals that now you're in the right time and you're in the right place where I've brought you to. All that we have is because of God. So the sin is not the object of the desire, but us taking control of the circumstance. That is not how he wants us to rule over the flesh, by claiming it as our own identity, our own possession. Like, this is who we are. Instead to return it to sender, where God gave it to us, is like a test. What are you going to do with it? Surrender it to God. And then he will take us to the right time and place to use what he has given us and the desires that he's put in us at their proper location. So let his spirit guide you, and not be someone who is ruling over by taking charge yourself. Surrender it to God, and then like pull down the will of God into that situation as you're waiting on God's direction and God's spirit to guide you. So that is how you rise above the flesh, all these circumstances of life, thoughts that overwhelm you, to realize it's not, nothing is wrong in itself. It's that we have to align it with God by surrendering instead of taking charge.